Greetings, I'm Daniel Hubin with Logos Education, and today I'm going to share with you about the TWSBI VAC Mini Fountain Pen and the TWSBI VAC 20A ink bottle. Now, TWSBI, spelled TWSBI, is a fairly new fountain pen manufacturer. The company has been around for a while. For about 50 years, they operated as, I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation, but the Ta Xin Precision Company based in Taiwan. And throughout those years, they manufactured parts, particularly out of plastic and metal, for other companies and brands. And then in 2009, they decided to produce their own fountain pens using their experience and expertise in plastics and metals. Now, the name is derived from the reverse acronym for the Chinese phrase San Wen Tong, and the name translates into English as the Hall of Three Cultures. And this is supposed to invoke in the audience the concept of the three rare treasures that were created in ancient times to commemorate the three masterpieces of Chinese calligraphy. And then in the name TWSBI, the final B, the BI, carries the meaning of writing. The word writing in Chinese is apparently pronounced B. So you have in the name both the Chinese word for writing instrument as well as a reminder of the three great works of Chinese calligraphy. And so for producing fountain pens for only about 16 years makes TWSBI one of the youngest competitors in the fountain pen market. However, they've done exceedingly well, and within those years have become one of the most respected and recognized names in the market, alongside many companies that have been around for many more decades or even centuries. Names like Lamy, Kaweco, Pilot. Now, what has enabled TWSBI to really stand out in the market is that they provide high quality, high production fountain pens for extremely low cost. So their first fountain pen was the precursor to their current TWSBI Diamond 580. It was and is an internal piston filling fountain pen that allows you to get a very large ink capacity. Usually to get an internal piston-filled fountain pen, you need to pay quite a bit of money, hundreds of dollars. But to get a TWSBI, particularly the TWSBI Diamond 580, you only need to pay about $50 to get an internal piston-filled fountain pen with a very high production quality. And in more recent years, they've come out with an even cheaper model, the TWSBI Eco. Eco stands for economical. And this is a even cheaper piston-filled fountain pen that markets for generally about $33. Huge ink capacity for a very low price. Now, what I'm going to share with you today is the TWSBI VAC Mini. It is not an internal piston-filled fountain pen. It's rather a vacuum-filled fountain pen, which is fairly rare. It enables a tremendous ink capacity, even greater than an internal piston-filled. And it also enables you to travel safely with a fountain pen without fear that your pen is going to bop while you travel, and I'll explain how that works in a moment. I've only had this pen for about a month. I purchased this as part of a Black Friday sale, but I've been extremely pleased with it. The size is fantastic. It's a mini. The TWSBI sells their VAC 700R, so this is designed to be a mini version of that larger vacuum filling fountain pen. And generally that sells for about $60, up to $65 if you get the special stub nib. That's what I have. It lays down a larger line and allows for some line variation. So it's like a mini italic nib, and allows you to produce some writing that looks more like calligraphy. So I had to pay a little bit more for that, but not much. And for a vacuum filling fountain pen, you usually need to provide a lot more money in order to purchase such an item. For only $60 to $65, this is one of the cheapest vacuum filled fountain pens that you can find out there. And how the vacuum filling mechanism works, and I need to be careful because the pen's mostly empty, but there's a little bit of ink left and I don't want any squirting out. But you need to unscrew the end cap, and there's an internal piston that you can see, and you pull the piston all the way up and out. Make sure that no ink spills. Pull the piston all the way up, like so. And then there is a end cap that acts as a plunger, and so you push the piston down, and as the plunger goes down, the area in the internal ink chamber between the plunger and the back of the ink chamber begins to fill with negative pressure. So you're producing a vacuum, you're stretching the air that remains in the back of the pen. And then when the plunger reaches the end of the ink chamber is considerably wider. At the end, that produces a gap. And because you've built up this negative pressure, whatever is outside of the nib and the feed of the pen gets sucked into the ink chamber. So if you dip this pen into ink and then you press down, once the plunger reaches the end, ink will be sucked up into the pen. If I were to do it now, air would replace the vacuum. And so you get a tremendous ink capacity with this pen. It's a fairly, as I said, uncommon filling mechanism. It can be a little difficult to clean. However, something that's really wonderful about the TWSBI pens and the TWSBI line is that the company expects you to be able to take their pens apart and to maintenance them yourself. And so they give you silicone grease to add some lubricant to the plastic plunger. They give you a wrench to remove the back end of the pen and to remove the entire piston. The nib unit comes off quite easily, and you can remove it to clean, or you can replace it with another nib of your desired size. And you can purchase spare nibs to swap them out. And once you remove the piston, remove the nib unit, then you have basically just a tube that you can rinse out. You can clean the nib unit, you can clean the piston, and it's just really easy to take care of any gunk or any dried ink, should that ever be an issue. Hopefully not. But usually vacuum-filled fountain pens are harder to clean. The fact that to get all of the ink out, you really need to take it apart. Add some complication, but the TWSBI Vac Mini is a lot easier to clean than a lot of the vacuum filling fountain pens. Another way that you can clean it, I haven't done this, but apparently you can stick this in water and just pump it multiple times. It takes a while to cycle through the inky water and ensure that all of the ink is removed and properly flushed. So that's a more time-consuming way. In the past, I've just taken it apart and cleaned it that way. Now, I really like the size of this pen. Okay, so if you push down on the plunger, and I can see a little ink coming out, but if you hear, at the end it created a popping noise, and that's from ink, sorry, not ink, air being sucked into the ink chamber. Now, I was saying that I really like the size of this fountain pen. The body of the pen is about 4.5 inches, and that makes a really great size. I can write with it as is without the cap posted. It's a little small, but it's fine to take short notes with it as is. If I'm going to be writing for a longer period of time, I like having the cap posted. The only thing, or one of the only things that is a little annoying is that the clip on the cap doesn't line up with the nib when I post it. It's a little off. It's not in the way or anything. It's just not as symmetrical as my brain would like it to be. But posted, it's not too long, it's not too back-weighted, and it's a really pleasant pen to write with. With the cap on, the length is a little less than 5 inches. Posted, the pen is a little less than 6 inches in length. And the cap is double threaded, and so you can put it on the wrong way, and the clip will dig into your hand a little bit if you do that. So it can take a moment to put the cap on correctly. The only other complaint I have is that a little while after I got this pen, I noticed a couple small hairline cracks in the cap. Very small. You can kind of see it in the video. It's not affecting the function of the cap. I don't remember it being there when I purchased the pen, and I may need to reach out to TWSBI to get a replacement for the cap if the crack increases in size. However, from everything I've heard, TWSBI has a fantastic customer service team, and they very readily replace any part that may have a error in it or may break or crack. And so if this becomes an issue, I don't really have any concern about TWSBI making it right. Now, this VAC20A inkwell is a really cool device. It's designed for the TWSBI VAC 700R and the TWSBI VAC Mini. It has a special lid that has basically two upper parts that are removed. You can remove the top two and reveal a spout that's designed to fit the VAC 700R, or you can place the inner piece in, and the TWSBI VAC Mini is designed to thread in. And this enables you to fill the TWSBI VAC 700R and the TWSBI VAC Mini with the ink well, or ink bottle I should say, upside down. And so we're going to do that. I have been, over the last few weeks, using two inks for this pen. One is the Waringal Phantom of the Opera ink. This is from South Korea, and it's a blue ink with a very light red sheen, light in terms of infrequent occurrence, as opposed to color. It's a fairly dark color, and with a sheening ink, it's generally a highly concentrated ink, and on certain papers you'll see two colors depending on the light. So it's a blue ink, but on some papers, if you look at it in the right light, you'll see red in there. And I've also been using the Diamine Black Ivy ink. This is produced in the UK. And this is a very dark green ink with a very strong red sheen. And so I'm going to refill it with this ink. That is the ink that is already in the pen. And I will refill it with that. And so I'm going to be using the TWSBI VAC 20A ink bottle to do it. Since this is a highly concentrated ink, I'll make sure that it's properly mixed. Probably unnecessary, but I like to be on the safe side. I'll fill this. Oh, that worked well. No mess. Make sure that this lid is on tight. Screw this in. All right. And do it one more time to make sure we get a good fill. And then I filled it without getting any ink on the grip section, which is quite nice. that's a benefit of this ink bottle. Make sure I get off any extra ink. Close up the ink bottle. And you can see that you've got a really good fill of ink. This has a tremendous ink capacity. And at max fill, you can get just under 2 milliliters of ink, which is enormous for a pen of this size. And a nice feature of this a nice feature of this pen is that when you have the end cap all screwed in, the piston plunger is actually blocking the feed. So whatever ink that is in the feed is the only ink that has access to the outside. And so if you're traveling on your plane and there's fluctuations in air pressure, this pen is designed not to bump. And as is, you can even write with it. For some time. And eventually you'll run out of ink in the feed. And so if you're writing for a longer period of time, you'll just need to unscrew the end cap a little bit. And that moves the piston back just far enough that the ink in the chamber can reach the feed. And you can continue writing. Yeah, this writes quite well, even though the pen is produced in Taiwan. The nib itself is a Yovo No. 4 nib produced in Germany. Yovo has a great reputation for very smooth nibs, high quality nibs. With this nib and this feed, the TWSBI pens tend to write slightly wet, not exceedingly wet, but they have great flow. With this pen, I've noticed that with very high sheening inks such as Black Ivy, if you leave the pen uncapped for a short bit of time, the ink in the feed can slightly dry out and you need to allow the pen to rest a little bit capped for the pen to write smoothly again. So I would just be careful with higher maintenance inks like the Diamond, Black Ivy, and other really high sheening inks. But otherwise, you shouldn't have any concerns with the pen drying out. With the vacuum filling mechanism, you really, caught it, prevented a mess there. With the vacuum filling mechanism, you don't have any worries about the pen bopping into the cap while you're traveling, or when it's in your pocket, or if it's moving around in a compartment somewhere. And like I said, it's a really great size, great for travel. I don't feel like I'm going to lose it, like I sometimes fear with smaller pens like the Kaweco Sport. But it's not a huge pen. It feels really good in my hand, and I really enjoy writing with it. I'll include a link to this product on the Pen Boutique website if you're so interested. That's where I purchased this pen. Currently, the pen is out of stock from most retailers in the US that I've seen, but I expect that's from the holidays, and I'm sure that the Pen Boutique and other companies like Goulet Pens will have them in stock shortly if you want to buy one for your very own collection. Thank you so much, and have a blessed day.